So it's Earth Day, Earth Week, so you can kind of guess where I'm going to go with my sermon today. But to begin with, there are two themes that run through our readings and our scriptures today. The first is the theme of love. Jesus came and said, "You are called to love one another as I have loved you." The second, of course, is the idea is that we are all part of God's created order. We live in harmony, where we attempt or call to live in harmony on God's created order. And to acknowledge that we're really not doing that great a job at it. So, have you ever had the experience of something pops into your head? An idea, a thought, an emphasis, you're paying attention to something more often than you normally would, and everywhere you go and everything you do seems to point in that direction. It's talking to you, like something or someone is talking to you that you might want to pursue this. You know, it's kind of like the analogy when you buy a red car, suddenly what do you see on the highway? Nothing but red cars. Right. Same kind of thing. Over the last number of weeks, it's been happening to me. And it has to do with the whole issue of the climate crisis that we are faced with. I think it started with the Paris Accord that occurred some few months ago and has continued ever since, that there seems to be a more national conversation going on. And so maybe that's part of the reason, I don't know. But even up until yesterday, it was something that was niggling at the back of my mind. And as you know, Vera and I went away on a vacation last week. we had a great time, and I'll tell you a little bit about that in a minute. But prior to us going away, I started watching this program on Netflix called Cosmos. Anybody seen that? You know, it was kind of the beginning thing, and then as you get into it, you really get drawn in and engaged with it. It's just staggering, the information that comes out of the show. And basically what the theme of the whole thing is that the entire universe is connected. Everything in this universe of ours is connected one to the other. And that in this connectedness, there is a common energy force. Use whatever language you want to use. Spirit, soul, connecting us one to the other. I just want to draw an analogy to give you the scope of what just blew my mind. And so the astronomer who's the host talked about all of the evolution of the universe, all 14 billion years. He said encapsulated into a calendar year. So January the 1st at 12:01 a.m. was the Big Bang, some 14 billion years ago. And then everything began to take off from there. He said, you can take all of recorded human history and put it into the last 6 minutes of December the 31st at the end of that year. The last 6 minutes. All of recorded human history. That Moses lived 3 minutes ago. Jesus lived 2 minutes ago. Muhammad a minute and a half ago. Just, again, the staggering nature of where we are living and how we are connected to this extraordinary universe that I believe beyond a shadow of a doubt that God is at the center of. That God is at the center of it. Second thing that occurred in the last couple of weeks was, as you do on vacation, you read. And I've been hearing about this particular book, and I've been sitting on my night table for a long time. And my mother actually gave it to me. It was one called Proof of Heaven by a doctor by the name of Ibn Alexander. Anybody read it? Dr. Ibn Alexander is a neurosurgeon taught at Harvard Medical School. And he has got a CV the length of your arm. One of the top neurosurgeons on the eastern seaboard of the U.S. In 2008, he contracted spinal meningitis, and was in a coma for 7 days. Spinal meningitis, the statistics are, if you're in a coma more than 24 hours, your chances of survival are less than 1%. He managed to last 7 days. At the end of the 7 days, he came out of this coma miraculously. And he then proceeded to tell the story after a number of weeks of recovery. According to all the doctors that were caring for him, he was literally brain dead in that he had no electrical activity in his neocortex of his brain. Often with these near-death experiences, people talk about that being a physiological reaction of your brain, where the chemicals are firing and reclaiming different memories and so on and so on and so on. So he goes on to tell the story of his own near-death experience. He didn't meet Jesus. He didn't encounter God in a manner in which we might think, in that he came across a character. He encountered God in a way that confirms the idea of the universe all being connected. He referred to God as Om. And he explained in detail the experiences of the way in which all he experienced was the unconditional and absolute loving nature of God and the universe. Now, put on your skeptic's hat. Read it with skeptic's glasses. Go ahead. But what it did for me was made me think and reflect on, again, this incredible nature of the universe in which we are living. It is profoundly miraculous on all sorts of levels. Again, I am a skeptic. I'm holding out on this thing, but it was a very interesting and provocative read, at least. So doing the reading this last couple of days, I came across a quote by Chris Hadfield. Chris Hadfield, the astronaut that went into, that was at the space station for all those months, the Canadian, he was asked the question, what did this do to his faith? And Chris Hadfield said, it didn't confirm for me that, that there is a God. He said, but what it did was, it said, it assured him that there was something at work. There was something. There has to be something at work. It reinforced in his own mind that the world, when you look at it all, cannot be a random experience. And he went on to kind of quote that every astronaut that has been in space since the beginning has always come back in some manner changed by what they have witnessed. And I believe that this is the reason that the Holy Scriptures, our Bible, the Old Testament, the New Testament, begins with the story of God breathing across the void and creating the heavens and the earth from Genesis 1. From the beginning, God created all things, the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, humankind made in God's image. It is not random. We are all connected. There is something at work in our universe that brings us one to the other. And then the scriptures go on to explain to us that we cannot be in right relationship with God unless we are in right relationship with each other and with God's creation. In the Hebrew language, the word land means all that is. The ground, the seas, the trees, the plants, the animals, insects, and all of humanity. There's a woman, professor at Virginia Seminary, her name is Ellen Day, and she was quoted as saying that, quote, one day in the fullness of time, quoting from the Hebrew scriptures, all creation will be given its voice, and we, as part of that creation, will be called to sit down at table and listen, really listen, and hear the pain that we've caused. And it occurred to me in reading this that I would have to hear the sadness and the unrelenting responsibility that I share in the role that I have played in having our planet and our God's creation come to the point it is, in this juncture in the history of the cosmos. As I said, we were on vacation last week, and one of the things that Elver and I have done on vacation is we like to go snorkeling. And a few years ago, we were snorkeling in the Pacific, and it was absolutely beyond words spectacular. So we were down on the Atlantic side of Mexico, and I wanted to do some snorkeling, so we investigated this adventure company called the Great Snorkeling Adventure Company. It must be good. So off we went out into the boat, and we got into this boat, and out into the ocean we went, and they're talking about this is the second largest coral reef on the planet, second only to the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. And so, you know, in the choppy water, and we put on the masks and put on the stuff, and we jump into the water. We got into the water, and all we saw was a dead coral reef, as far as the eye could see. There was plants, anemone and other plants that thrive on grasping onto the dead coral. There were some fish, not many, and it was depressing beyond words. It was depressing beyond words. The coral reefs that we have seen before were colorful and vibrant and alive. We come home, talked about it as a good experience, but how disappointing the whole thing has been from that point of view. And then yesterday on Quirks and Quarks, there was a scientist, that if you heard it, talking about the coral reef in the Christmas Islands of the South Pacific. One of the most spectacular coral reefs on the planet, she said. Within 9 months, this coral reef, 95% of it is dead and has been bleached in 9 months. Reason being, El Nino. The planet, as it warms, the Pacific Ocean, as it is warming, the coral reef can only sustain about a 2-degree swing in temperature of the waters. It has been twice that amount in the South Pacific, and it has killed the coral reef. 5% of this coral reef remained. This woman was absolutely stunned in the 9 months that she had been between her visits to this particular coral reef. It's overwhelming, I know. It is overwhelming. So the first thing I need to understand, we all need to understand, is that we are connected. We are connected by the energy force, the spirit, love, and the care and responsibility for care that we are given by God. So what is it we can participate in? How do we participate? Well, yesterday there were a few of us from Incarnation that went out and did clean up at a park up Third Line. I just need to shout out to Julia Bowden. She was in earnest, and she was in the thickets, and she had burrs in her hair, and she was extraordinary. And we collected an amazing amount of garbage. When you walk through a park and you're not paying attention, you look around and that looks okay. As soon as you start looking, it gets quite frightening what you find. And at one point, there was another family, a woman and 2 children, kind of up this path from where we were. And as I was walking up, I overheard the young girl, 9 years old or so, say something to the effect of, "Mommy, does this really matter?" And I'm not sure what she was referring to. And all her mother said was, "Yes, every little bit helps. Every little bit helps." And that's the point. Every little bit helps. You know, making our energies more energy efficient, caulking the doors and windows. We know all these kinds of things. But an interesting statistic that I came across was that if everyone in North America changed one light bulb, to an LED, we would save enough energy to light over 3 million homes. Or it'd be like taking 800,000 cars off the highways in North America. If each of us were to eat just 20% less red meat, it would be as if all of us were driving Priuses, just like Susan.
Yeah.
And Ann,
Jeff.
and you happen to be a vegetarian as well. It's trying as hard as it is to eat locally. Not just because we're supporting the local farmers, it's because then it takes less energy to get food on our table. The Archbishop of Canterbury just recently was quoted as saying, in regards to something as simple as grocery bags. You know, all of us get annoyed that we have to pay 5 cents for a grocery bag, and some of us it helps, and makes us not buy them, and others, it's hard to say. But what he talks about is the vast throwaway kind of society we live in. And he said, how does this influence other parts of our lives to be in such a throwaway society? Do we think of people and relationships as disposable? God does not throw away and start again. We are asked to have the same commitment. God does not do waste well. Neither should we. I know we can't each take care of the whole of God's creation, and it's overwhelming. But we can take care of that which is in front of us. We can change one thing at a time. And we can all change one thing that is easy to change. This much we can do, and who knows? We might end up cleaning up the whole earth, our fragile island one. Thanks be to God.